Hi guys, good afternoon. Today is our presentation. My name is Jing Hui and my partner name is
Yu Zhan.
And our topic today is learner spoken output and teacher response in second language versus foreign language classroom.
First, let's go to the chronology of our presentation. The first part is about the content of this passage, including the background knowledge, research question, methodology, and analysis of the results. And the second part is about the limitation and suggestions that we have through the passage. And the third part is a critique of our own thoughts. And the last part is our discussion question.
Okay, first let's go through the first part about the content of this passage. First is the background of the study. It is commonly agreed that learner target language output is essential for communicating language learning and the development of oral skills. It makes the learners notice that what they actually produce and what they intend to produce. It helps them to test their hypotheses about how the target language works, and although it pushes them to reflect on language structures that they have not fully acquired. And although the well-known initiation response follow-up patterns can account for most classroom discourse regardless of subject, this pattern has also been referred to as initiation response feedback and initiation reply evaluation. However, the third term can comprise non-evaluative acts such as asking for justification or clarification or providing a comment. Evaluative third terms, particularly those involving corrective feedback, have received particular attention in second and foreign language research. Recent CF research indicates that the CF types that teachers provide, while reflect with factors such as second versus foreign language instruction, learner TL proficiency, and learner age. However, to our knowledge, no study to date has synthesized investigated how TL classroom discourse unfolds differently across instructional settings. So the author chose lower secondary school in Norway as an example to find out how much and what kind of learner TL output is produced in an L2 English and L3 French classroom, and how do teachers respond to this output. Why this topic is very important is that previous empirical research from Norway indicates that TL is used extensively in secondary school L2 English classroom and somewhere less in primary schools. With L3 instruction, TL use is very limited. None of the studies on TL use in Norway classroom examined how teachers respond to learner TL output when first produced, and this is the present.
For this study, the author used data from 10th grade English and French lessons. 5 schools were filmed in both these subjects in 10th grade and are included in this study. Invitations to participate were sent to the school's administrator. Information meetings were held with teachers. Participating teachers, students, and their parents all signed written content forms. The English classes had more students than the French classes. The learners were proficient users of English but beginner in French, as they were in the third year of the French class, with only 2 to 3 teaching hours a week and a limited out-of-school exposure. About the data, they used a validated Norwegian version on the Triple Student Perception Survey. This survey taps into student perceptions of the instructional quality of the classroom, assessing content and pedagogy as well as relations. The students responded to items on a 5-point Likert scale. They filled in one questionnaire for each subject teacher. For the current study, the authors analyzed 3 items that directly addressed interactional patterns and error correction. Then comes to the data analysis procedures. The author first prepares for analysis and transcribing the material. He watches the videos to get an overview of the material and decides on the necessary amount of transcriptions. Then he calls learner TL terms that captured the teacher's attention. Thirdly, he started to answer research questions that TL learner terms were counted and the number of words for each were registered using the word count in Microsoft Word. The qualitative analysis software NVivo 12 were used to sort the teacher's responses into categories. And then the author first coded one lesson together to ensure a similar understanding of the codes. At last, he started triangulating the results. After finalizing the video-based analysis, they analyzed the learners' responses to the 3 selected items from the student survey to see whether these would confirm the video observation related to research questions. The result of amount and type of learner TL output in these two classes are totally different. As you can see in this chart, in English class, the target lectures is much more than the non-target lectures. But for the French class, the non-target output is a little bit more than the target output. And for the second question, the result is much more complicated. From the data, we can see first, L2 English and L3 French teachers responded differently to learners' target utterance. The English teachers followed up on learners' contribution by summarizing, elaborating, and commenting on the content of learners' terms. They also pushed for more learner output through elaboration questions that ask for clarification or justification. But the French teachers' most frequent response to target terms were confirming repetition. Press also served as a sequence closure at some occasions. Strategies that intend the interaction or pushed for more output were rare. Manual responses sometimes serve this function, as they did in the English class. Second, regardless of whether utterance were target-like or non-target-like, a sharp construct exists regarding content-related comment. In the English classes, teachers frequently summarized, elaborated, and gave personal comments also to non-target lectures. In the French license, content-related comments were rare, and the teacher frequently used of confirming repetitions for target-like utterance and linguistically oriented CF for non-target-like utterance did not encourage content elaboration. Third, the extent to which the teachers corrected error differed, while only 37% of non-target-like terms in the English classes received some kind of correction or scaffolding. 86% of non-target-like terms in the French classes did. This pattern supports previous research that stated that overall, error correction is considerably more frequent in form-focused than meaning and fluency context. Fourth, when error correction occurred in the English classes, implicit strategies were the preferred choice, whereas in the French classes, teachers used a broader range of CF types, including both implicit and explicit strategies. And in both L2 English and L3 French, teachers often used a combination of responses strategies and feedback moves to a single learner term. And then my partner Natasha will introduce the rest part of this presentation. Thank you for listening now.
The results of the study show that L2 English teacher taught in a meaning and fluency-oriented contest, frequently eluded errors and provided ample content-related response. The English classroom output was almost exclusively communicated in that aim was to produce the meaningful contribution and share personal perspective. While L3 French teacher taught in the form and accuracy contest, using various stages to correct errors and rarely engaged with the content of the learner's utterance. The main aim was to practice recently learned grammar and vocabulary, and learner message or personal opinions was not relevant. There are several limitations of this study. The first limitation is that it does not cover all situations in which learners receive teacher outside on their spoken target language output. The research eluded data of the feedback may be provided outside the classroom. The second limitation is that there are limited classrooms to investigate the two different learning contexts. Very hard to establish the significant difference between the two investigated contexts. The last shortcoming is that the research only provides an overview of how teachers respond to learner target language output in L2 and L3 classroom, but did not offer in-depth assessment of how speaker interactional patterns develop. Therefore, in order to fulfill the gap from the limitation, there are several suggestions to improve the quality of the investigation. The first is that investigators can follow the teacher's feedback which are provided outside the classroom, then record it and conduct a detailed analysis about the reaction for the L2 and L3 learners after they receiving the feedback. Secondly, the study is supposed to use more large-scale study to evaluate the significant difference between the L2 and L3 investigate contests, which can guarantee the accuracies of the comparing data. The first suggestion is that the study could have a deep analysis of the fuller interaction pattern unfold between the speaker in L2 versus L3 learning context. At the same time, the study can offer a fuller description of how teachers encourage, scaffold, and evaluate learner target language talk, not just analyze the step of how to give feedback in surveys. The next part is the critic part, and this research both involves the pros and cons. For the pros, first, the research has clear definition to explain the difference between the second language learning and foreign language learning, which can let readers follow the clear direction of the investigation. It is specific because the study points out that it is the first study on target language use in Oregon classroom, how teachers respond to learner output, which can fulfill the gap of the previous research. The next advantage is that the study is more valuable to consider the target-like churn and non-target-like churn in the L2 and L3 learning context, which can avoid the missed data analysis. The last is that in the research analysis, based on the result, the research considered the implication of the language linguistic learning, which figure out the negative of the exclusive concentrating on meaning in L2 teaching, while only focus on form in L3 teaching circumstance, and figure out that it is hard to keep the balance when teachers teach in the form or meaning-oriented classroom. However, there are some cons of this research. First, the research study did not distinguish between the written and oral activities, which might cause the slight difference between the results and observation. Second, the topic of the L2 teaching circumstance is not suitable for the level of the 10th grade student to discuss, such as the serious political problem. Third, it is limited to only consider the background context of learning, but allowed a different manner of the instruction from various countries of L2 and L3 educational context pattern. And here has a discussion question for you guys to consider. If you are a teacher in the future, how do you treat and respond to learner output? Thank you for you guys to listen our presentation.